Have you ever sensed when someone wants to ask you a question, but they're too polite to risk it? Others just come right out and said to me, "What happened to you?" Late in the evening, on July 1st, 2016, Gary and I were on a commuter plane from Chicago to Detroit. We were returning from a vacation in Europe, and we're on the last leg home. We boarded, stowed our hand luggage, and sat down. As the other passengers streamed on, I started to read a magazine when, out of the blue, something whipped across my face and whacked my left eye. I was just sitting in my seat. I felt excruciating pain, lowered my head, and began to breathe deeply. What struck me could have been a strap, it probably was, from someone's backpack. But the person continued down the aisle, most likely oblivious to what had just happened. My left eye and cheek swelled up rapidly and turned black and blue. So I made my way to the front of the plane, explained my predicament, and asked for some ice. The subsequent arrival of 3 burly Chicago paramedics dressed in firefighter garb in order to check me out was a bit embarrassing, but they did their job very well. They wanted to take me to the hospital, but I wasn't leaving that plane. My eyesight did not seem to be affected, and I really just wanted to get home. So I signed a waiver, thanked them for their kindness, and off we flew back to Des Moines. All of this happened while I was a candidate for the episcopacy. An attempt to cover up my black eye for a video interview the day after the accident was futile. Realizing that there was no way to hide it, I decided to let those blue, purple, yellow, orange, and green colors shine in all their brilliance. I've never worn any makeup anyway, so it didn't matter. The good news is that black eyes eventually heal, and the colors do disappear, but it takes a while. In reality, people with shiners have one overriding concern. What are other people going to say or think when they see this hideous black eye? And how can I cover it up? After 10 days with a shiner, I knew that many people were uncomfortable around me because they just weren't sure how to respond. Some asked about it right away. Others averted their eyes, ignored the shiner, or acted as if I looked perfectly normal. Still others attempted a weak joke about domestic violence. Who hit you? Fortunately, the black eye eventually disappeared, and I became known not as the black eye bishop, but eventually as the backpack bishop. For I've worn my black backpack everywhere since I was elected to be an Episcopal leader. And when my first backpack wore out after 4 years of worldwide travel, Gary bought me a second identical black backpack. My election as a bishop on July 14, 2016, adorned with a 2-week-old black eye, some of you may remember, was a bit of a surprise, but I sensed that I was ready, especially after having served as a district superintendent and in various places of conference leadership. It was always a joy to meet with clergy and laity and be inspired by their deep commitment to Jesus, which in turn made me inspired to make a difference in the world, the way I saw so many others of you, many of you here today, and the incredible ministry that you have been involved in for so many years. And so I want to thank you, each one of you. Thank you for praying for me. Thank you for mentoring me. Thank you for guiding me. Thank you for being honest with me. Thank you for challenging me. Thank you for holding me accountable for self-care. Thank you for loving me and my family. Thank you for the hugs, except during COVID. Thank you for being willing to wrestle with difficult issues and maybe even change your mind on occasion. Thank you for encouraging me to say no when I was asked to take on extra responsibilities during times when I was already feeling overwhelmed. And thank you for continuing to reach out to the least, the last, and the lost with the good news of God's love for all people. My shiner was a teaching moment. I learned that not covering up my black eye symbolizes the transparency and honesty that I've always tried to convey in my life and my faith. I am far from perfect, but I believe that my flaws and my wounds can become a source of healing for others. Unfortunately, the severe concussion, the broken wrist, and the fall that I experienced on February 16th has also been a learning experience for me. It has put into perspective the difficulties that so many people experience with concussions and other unexpected crises. Plus, it illuminated for me some of the struggles that I have always had with overworking and overextending myself. Perhaps some of you have the same problem. If so, please take care of yourself. I can't think of any other career in which I would have been happy except for ministry. I attribute that in large part to my mother and my father and my grandmothers, who modeled the love of Jesus for me and my 3 siblings, were deeply faithful to their Mennonite and Church of the Brethren heritage, and always urged me to make a positive difference in the world. I look forward to moving back to Michigan, where Gary and I lived for most of our ministry, and where we raised our children. We'll be close to our 2 grandchildren, and we'll be able to walk beside them as they grow into responsible and loving adults. Most of all, I want to thank Gary for always loving, encouraging, and challenging me over these last 41 years. He was a fabulous pastor himself and is an incredible theological thinker. Thank you, Gary. There's no way that I could have served in this role without your encouragement, your presence, and especially your excellent proofreading. Finally, after having fallen on that black ice during a training run for the Boston Marathon, I came away with the fractured wrist and the concussion and the gift of a 6-month medical leave. I am way beyond grateful for the hundreds of cards and expressions of love, emails that I received. It was your encouragement and support, Gary's love and care, and the skills of my therapists that have enabled me to return to active ministry for these last 3 months of 2002 before retiring. And yes, I'm still competing in the Boston Marathon next year. And I know I'm not going to fall this time. I'm not going to fall this time. I competed in the Boston Marathon 2 months after the fall with Gary's blessing, and that was one of the greatest gifts that he's ever given to me. So my friends, my dear friends, deep gratitude to you, each one of you, for the privilege of hearing the call, loving Jesus, serving the church, singing your faith, and bringing in God's reign on this earth. I have treasured every moment of my ministry. I don't know what the future will bring, but I do know who holds the future, and I know it will be a future of hope. Thank you. I love you all.